Well, good day, everyone. Welcome to our webinar today, AI use cases for insurance. My name's Joe Nestori. I'm a director of business development here at Sphere Partners. Let me introduce our panelists. We've got Alex Scher joining us today. Alex is a longtime insurance and reinsurance executive and is the founder of Cyber Insurance. We also have Mario Schwartz, who is the managing director of data and intelligence practice here at Sphere Partners. We could be joined at some point by Chirag Pankoli, who is an investor and is the co-founder there he is, there's Chirag, and the co-founder of Inspire Health Technologies. So just so everyone knows, we've got a Q&A box. As part of the webinar, you all can probably see that. If you have questions as we go, please enter them as you think of them in the QA box. We'll make every effort to get your questions answered. We have set some time at the end for Q&A. And if we aren't able to get to your question during the webinar, we do promise we will follow up with an answer to your question, by our subject matter experts here on the call. So with that, we'll start the webinar. So why don't I, get things moving here by asking our panel kind of to describe, if they could, maybe the current state of AI in the insurance industry. Is AI having an impact now? Is it a myth or reality here today in the insurance industry?
So I was gonna pass it along to Chirag because I can speak for it from the side of the solution implementer, but I would prefer to have it from the business side input first. So Chirag, what do you think about what's AI doing for insurance and insurance tech right now?
Yeah, thank you, Mario. Briefly, my background is in insurtech and using AI as well recently. I'm also an investor from our private fund. AI has been in the headlines substantially across the board. I will take on the notion of somewhat skepticism here on the panel. There's been a tremendous amount of interest in AI. Oftentimes people's understanding of what AI truly is and how it could be helpful to each particular function within an insurance stack is somewhat unknown. And so I think what people are doing right now is trying to understand where in the hype cycle AI is currently and where they can use it. No doubt the power of computation now is very helpful for many mundane tasks in insurance. As a licensed insurance agent for almost a dozen years now plus, I can attest to the fact that there are a tremendous amount of mundane tasks across the board in insurance, whether inside of a carrier, underwriter, TPA even, and of course front-facing, consumer-facing insurance agents as well. So the opportunities for AI are out there, but I think we're at just the very beginning of how to understand this new technology and how to use it for efficiency's sake. I think that what I see currently right now with my venture capital friends is that there's a tremendous amount of dollars being thrown into anything that has a bumper sticker that says AI written on it. That's a shame, because what that does is it unfortunately clouds people's decision making on where exactly does this AI tool need to be used to create the most enjoyment and efficiency in the corporate landscape. But happy to delve deeper into this. I think it's a very important inflection point in technology sophistication for the insurance sector. It's a little early, and I think people are still trying to figure it out.
So if I can contribute my opinion, yeah, insurance is a old industry, highly regulated. So we shuffle a lot of paper, we have a lot of information that we process, and clearly AI is of potential interest in that context. So I think I would side with Chirag in saying that I see AI for insurance first and foremost as a productivity play. There's a lot of menial tasks that can be streamlined and being made more productive through the use of AI. Beyond that, there is obviously the question of making sharper underwriting decisions. That's an area where AI can help make more of the information available to make better underwriting decision. Be it, do I want to extend or not extend an insurance offering to a client? And then if I want to do an offering, what should be the price? AI can also help on the claim side, obviously, providing the client with a better experience, a smoother experience. Often people have mixed experience dealing with claims departments. So AI can be there to be more timely with the client, getting information from the client about the claim and also being more responsive. AI can also help, of course, with the fraud detection issues, which ultimately is going to benefit the clients because there would be less claims leakage and better opportunity for better prices. I think I would be cautiously optimistic as well as Chirag is with AI insurance. I think the number one factor might be the acceptance among insurance employees. And I think the insurance operations, which are going to be the most successful in AI, are not necessarily the ones which are going to be using the most shiny product, but the ones who are going to be successful onboarding their staff and showing the case for AI be a success for all and not a threat for insurance employees. So I think that's a topic that we might want to discuss perhaps during this webinar.
No, that's excellent. Thank you, Alex, and thank you,
So expanding on that, I would say from the service side, and this is just how, practically I've seen those cases being implemented. I think the being cautiously cautious on how things are done. One of the main problems that have been identified is really, are you ready for AI? So that tackles both your concerns. I mean, one that Alexander is bringing is, does the people fear being replaced by AI? And second is really, how do you make sure that what you're putting together is really the best business case? So that to me is really step one. The foundation, I think what people is they're jumping to experiment without really using a value driver for that experimentation. But I hear a lot about the fear of employees being replaced by AI, and I think that we can explore a few use cases in the next few minutes to talk about what's been successful and what's been a risk and what is that pushback from change, because as you know, everything that changes always gets some pushback. So how do we handle that and make that effective? So Joe, any comment? Anything that you've heard? I mean, I know you've been in some insurance events lately. What have you heard?
Well, I to your point, Mario, I've heard a lot about people sort of experimenting with AI, putting teams together, starting to spend money on AI without any defined ROI at the end of the project or any defined benefit that they expect to get from spending that money. It's almost as if they want to build up some AI skills without having a specific outcome in mind. And at the end of the day, once they've spent that money, they don't necessarily see any kind of benefit. So that's something I've heard. They're afraid of falling behind from a skill set standpoint, but they're not recognizing or realizing any benefit at the end of some of these efforts. So I think your point about choosing the use case very carefully on the front end is something that they can benefit from.
If I may just make a quick comment here. Of course, it depends on the amount you're spending, but back to what we said earlier, I think it's not necessarily a bad thing to do some experiments, let people play a little bit with AI and figure out what it is and what AI can do for the organization. Of course, it would be insane to spend too much money on projects that don't go anywhere. But I see some value in trying like the sandbox approach of letting employees experiment and see what comes out of the discussion in a pragmatic fashion. It's always time then to select the projects which are the best prospect in terms of ROI. But I think the experimentation approach can take the edge out of AI and make people less skeptical or less anxious about it.
That's a good point, because I think the safest approach that I've seen, and I'm gonna start diving in some use cases, is really getting the people to participate. And one way that I have recommended to do that is not only first assess and identify what are some of those cases for experimentation, but also treat them as proof of concept. So that gives you a little more freedom of participation, because sometimes the users are afraid of the new technology and are afraid of, am I going to fail here, right? Is it something that, should I say everything? Should I? And that's really one of the main pieces, is what we're trying to replicate and substitute those mundane tasks like we were talking about. There's a lot of them that happen, that if the user that is interfacing with the engineer that is creating the AI solution is not really honest and tells you, hey, we struggle with this process, we struggle with this, and this sometimes gives me this answer, but sometimes it doesn't give me, right? Then you're not gonna get that solution that you're looking for. That's the main problem that I have encountered. I have a particular client that has been experimenting with, and as part of the POC, we talked about how do we really help your analysts become more efficient on the underwriting process, because the underwriting, all the amount of documentation that they have to validate, look back and forth, and make sure that is right, that is not right. If you create an engine and an agent that helps you, and actually in this case, multiple agents look for the data, be a PDF or be data that are in databases, it gives you the information, exponentially faster. So in this case, they have seen efficiencies at a minimum of 30% just with the POC. So in this case, what do you feel? I mean, how do you feel, this guy's worked it out so the fear of the employee being substituted, it's not present, because if you're telling them, I'm gonna do this underwriting thing that you're doing, what is the message that you give to that person? That person immediately is going to say, oh, they're automating my job, because this is what happened when you brought robotics in. So have you had any experience seeing this type of AI to help with the mundane task, or it is something that you would like to experiment, guys? This goes to both of you.
Chirag, you want to go, or you're on mute now?
I think the unfortunate situation is that many people within organizations don't fundamentally understand how AI works and where it could be applied. And I don't mean to be the more cynical individual on this panel, but I'm trying to be very judicious for our collective benefit, the audience's benefit, our industry's benefit. We don't want to be yet another example of hubris, chasing after technology that people don't understand, throwing R&D dollars at ineffective use cases. And so I think that's absolutely right, Mario, when you mention it. the decision-making process within insurance companies is just as important as the AI itself. What I mean by that is there's something called pluralistic ignorance that I've noticed quite often in organizations, large as well as small. Pluralistic ignorance is a term that's used by psychologists where everybody in the room assumes the other person knows everything that's going to happen. So you basically, your cognitive brain is turned off because you assume other people in the room know more about something than you do. Now, it might be a good thing to have that humility, but the downside of that is if everybody in the room thinks everybody else is more knowledgeable about something, then that's troublesome because that engenders groupthink, and then insurance companies, intermediaries, etc., start going off into initiatives and activities that at the end of the day people kind of question themselves and say, hey, how did we blow $1 billion on this initiative? you know and then everybody points fingers. And so to avoid pluralistic ignorance, really, really important for people who are advocating the use of AI in projects within incumbent companies or in emerging de novo organizations to have a very, very firm grasp of what this tool is being used for and what the outcome should be. And also where the kill switch is. As a former aerospace engineer and rocket engineer, there's always a kill switch. There's an operator standing right there with their button on the kill switch, metaphorically and practically, right there. At any given point, they can kill the rocket so it doesn't do damage. I wonder if organizations, when they consider using AI tools, have a kill switch process established as well that reduces the amount of embarrassment internally, but also externally to partners, vendors, etc., investors, and Wall Street. So I think some of those things are really important to think about. I can go on and on about this, but I will go back on mute because I'm sure other folks have some things to say as well. There's a lot of positives of AI, but how you use a tool is just as important as the tool itself.
Well, I mean, you're hitting a lot of human factor here, which is really the one of the things that people are forgetting. They're focusing so much on the technology that they're forgetting about the human factor that is in there, and this disconnect that you pointed out very wisely is part of what I would call, AI readiness. So are people really ready for AI? Because, like you said, there's a lot of ignorance about what AI is. I mean, Alexander, from your side, what have you seen really that people, do they really understand what AI is before they really jump into the lake?
I'd like to bring up two examples for the audience, but before I go there, I wanted to rebound on what Chirag said about the kill switch. Obviously, AI is a human challenge as well in terms of adoption and anxiety. Reminds me that I recently saw a movie I probably seen 5 times before, Space Odyssey, where you have this scene where the computers, which at the time was meant to be an AI, I guess, HAL, is taking control of the ship. And the human has no option but to go physically into the room and unplug the computer. And I think that's a great example of the importance of humans, of making humans feeling that they keep in control of the thing. Kill switch, controls that we talk about AI being the co-pilot of humans. I think it's the opposite that needs to happen. Humans need to be the co-pilot of AI. And I think in a way, the insurance industry is not new to the challenge. We've had many tech challenges before, which carried already a lot of anxiety, and perhaps we can draw from this experience to make the AI adoption experience smoother. And I think it starts with empowering people and making people work as teams. In any organization, you're going to have young people who are more agile and more keen to adopt new technologies, and you have going to have employees which are more advanced, who are more advanced in their professional lives, which are going to be more skeptical and more anxious about technology they don't understand. And the key in any project is to make people work together to draw on the energy of the youngest talents and keep the employees with more experience on board, because precisely they can bring experience and bring their insight. There are two projects or two domains which I think are good for AI in an insurance context. The first is the processing of quote requests. A quote might come to an insurance operation through a broker, through a web screen or whatnot. It often comes in an unstructured manner by way of a free text email, for example. AI can be there to help process this information and structure the quote request so that human eyes can look at it and make sure that the AI has done a good job at identifying into a free text request the key element of the quote request, for example, the limit, the inception date, the name of the insured, etc. And when you do that, you kind of keep the human in control because human eyes are going to verify the information, but the AI has been there to do the heavy lifting job of, parsing the email and presenting the information in the most common sense possible. So the human is left with a checking role, but also sometimes to go back to the email if there is a hallucination or error. So that I think is a very pragmatic project that every insurance operation should try, the processing of incoming quote requests. The second example or area of application would be legacy systems. Insurance companies are plagued with legacy systems, old systems that they don't know. They are concerned about stopping them altogether and migrating to a new system. So conversion projects are always the most tricky in my experience in an insurance context. I think AI can be there to accompany the conversion process, make sure that no data is left on the table, and otherwise wrap the conversion process to get more value out of it. So this is like taking existing insurance challenges and injecting some AI to make it more efficient and give a chance to employees to try it and see the benefit of using it.
Well,
So in terms of readiness, a couple of metrics I heard kicked around when I was in New York a couple of weeks ago at an insurance conference were that, number one, insurance companies are currently only using about 15% of their available data, and 80% of all insurance company data is unstructured data. And so, from a readiness standpoint, should insurance companies really be looking at making their data more usable before they start to layer AI use cases, on top and using that data to make more of that data available first?
I would ask Chirag because Chirag is the guy who worries about a lot of things. So I would say, Chirag, one thing when I hear about this is, yeah, let's bring all the data together. But the question that nobody's asking is, what about the data governance and the security? So what are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, thank you. And I don't mean to monopolize the conversation, but I really think this is really valuable to our audience here and to all of us on this call, is the data ownership issue. Who actually owns this data legally and practically, and who has accessibility to it? One thing to think about is when we're interacting with AI systems, whether they're free or freemium or bought and licensed, we do not sufficiently know what information gets thrown into the corpus of the AI. Meaning, if you're ingesting information, when you're working with the information, you're putting it into the models, and then you're asking the AI to solve for something, I am unclear as to what the proper data ownership, retention, destruction policies are regarding AI tools. Because the minute you start using the AI chatbot and start supplying information, and even the queries that you're doing, that is feeding into the corpus of data that the AI will be ingesting and working off of continuously. So sometimes when I talk to insurance companies and executives and leaders, or just regular people like me, and I say, well, okay, you're asking this question, you're uploading this information for the AI to do something for you. What happens after you've submitted that information, that query, and you've gotten that answer? Can you delete it? Can you expunge it? No. In all practical purposes, the AI machine is a forever hungry beast, for lack of a better term. I'm trying to make this webinar a little bit more livelier than so analytical. AI is a massive beast who only keeps feeding on more information you give it, because the promise is that it'll eat all that information and spit back something better than it got at the end of the day. It's sort of like data arbitrage in a way. And I think that it's something for executives and managers and practitioners to recognize and take a moment to say, okay, if I use AI, what data is going to get concatenated with existing data within the corpus, meaning the body of that AI data set, which is insatiable. Corollary to that is the extension of who else will be getting value from the corpus of data that got bigger. Now, it could be your customers. That's great. It could be your teammates. That's even better too. But it could be competitors. It could be malcontents out there. It could be, nefarious behavioring actors out there, because you can imagine hackers and malcontents would have access to the same tools good, honest, hardworking people do using AI. So we have to really think about, when we start asking the terminal questions, when we start asking HAL, quote unquote, from 2001 questions like, what is HAL going to do with that data? And then who else is HAL talking to? And so I always think about that a little bit, and I'll rein myself in here because I don't know if I answer your question, Mario and Andre and Joe, but I think that that's something very careful to think about. The questions you ask an AI chatbot are actually telling the AI something more. And so we have to be very careful about that. Not that we should be scared of it, but we should recognize that this is a tool and there's always a cost benefit. And so we have to really think about the guardrails around the corpus of data as it gets bigger and bigger.
Well, if you're looking at it from the point of view of what we started, it's two things, right? It's the governance is paramount to be doing things right. And I think that in that end, Europe is more advanced on that the US. We're I would say we're happily experimenting with many things here in the US, but I think in Europe they are looking at things a little more like from your lens in there. But Alexander is over there, so he can even talk a little bit more about, you know, what is GenAI being used for? I mean, are you using it also for detecting cyber threats or any other piece of security that you have? Because putting that corral around all that knowledge, I see some of the organizations really trying to put that in there, but I don't see a lot of the leading organizations really caring too much about that. And I don't want to be mentioning, the typical names that everybody will know, of those big cloud providers. But Alex, what do you think is Europe really doing ahead of us here, for working with cybersecurity and security threats?
I think the question of intellectual property and data confidentiality is key, obviously. I'm not sure if the European regulation is going to lead to a better outcome ultimately. Sometimes you do regulation and you go to bed and think, okay, this box has been checked. I think the key is the management of insurance companies or any organization be aware of where the data is going. As Chirac said, you have to feed the beast constantly. And when the information goes somewhere, it's there forever. So you really have to be careful about where the data is going. You have a duty to your clients to preserve their confidential data, and you have a duty to your shareholders to protect your intellectual property as an organization. I know a couple of large insurance organizations which have forbidden their staff to use AI in any form of shape possible. So this is a very very important matter. I think Microsoft last week said that they boasted the capability of their AI to record frames on your screen and learn from what you're doing to make your job more efficient. And that actually backfired because people realized, oh my God, Microsoft is actually learning what I'm doing. And I'm happy that they offers me to, learn from that, but they probably learn themselves with what I'm doing. And it's clearly when you spend time on a spreadsheet and AI can learn what you're doing and then, take the value out of the learning from the organization. So those questions are really key. And I think when you hear AI specialists, you see the dividing line between closed learning environment and open learning environment. And this question is key for CTO or CIO to consider. In terms of using AI in the cybersecurity or cyber insurance field, cyber insurance is really, it's a tech proposition, but it's also a human behavior proposition. A number of cyber attacks start with social engineering. And you know about those emails which are trying to induce you to click on the link, and that's the start of a cyber breach. So we know that AI is being used in that context to craft more successful emails, in the sense that the email is going to contain personal details about the recipient. If you're the CEO or the CFO, the AI logic can have garner from your social media activity, what's the name of your children, where you're going, and the AI can summarize a more efficient email to make you click on the link. So it's a kind of arm race here, because as a cyber defense, you can also have AI try and detect those kind of phishing attempts. It's almost like a Turing machine. You have like two machines trying to find out if the other side is a human or a machine trying to do nefarious stuff. Yeah, in that context, AI, we also we are looking at analyzing pattern, and if you have a baseline of network activity you believe to be honest and legal, you can try and detect departures from that normal pattern using AI quite efficiently in terms of traffic intensity or the timing of certain movements. So cyber insurance is clearly an area where AI is expected to be a competitive edge. Not the only one though, but clearly there are very obvious applications there.
So, Chirag, is this many heads of the monsters now that we're looking at based on what Alex is saying? Because was just remembering what you were talking about, this big monster that we're unleashing here, and so what are your thoughts? I mean, not just. I mean, I know we're talking about insurance, but what are really your thoughts of how is AI really based on unregulated and what we're trying to achieve, is gonna be the next step? I mean, can we really make it a reality, or is this going to be one of those technologies that is going to be misused and misleveled? How do you see the future really developing with it?
Yeah, I have no idea, to answer your question, and that's just being humble and being honest with myself. I can only look to history. I tell my children all the time, like, to know the future, read history. You know, um, does anybody remember the term big data? Do you remember data?
Yeah.
Every single article, every single blog post, every single CEO, every single CFO was talking about big data on conferences. I don't even remember what people thought big data was back then. That was only several years, 5-6 years ago, not even. Whatever happened to big data? Is this still relevant? If it was so hyped 5, 6, 7, 10 years ago, shouldn't it still be relevant in the conversation right now, just as much as AI is being used? And so I just look at it historically and say, what is AI going to look like? Is it going to look like big data where no one thinks about it anymore because it was just so obvious? Like, yeah, there's a lot of data. So what? What do you do with it? Or Is it something like, hey, this is really imaginative, inventive? It's, Wi-Fi, ubiquitous Wi-Fi, where it's like everybody expects it. It's a useful tool. No one's afraid of ubiquitous Wi-Fi, but it's something that everybody just accepts. So which way will AI go? Will it be big data, or will it be ubiquitous Wi-Fi that everybody just logs on to when they go to get a cup of coffee or a Danish? I honestly don't know. One thing that I think about is, and I don't mean to besmirch Gartner and Forrester and all those consulting firms, but does anybody ever go back in time and read those Gartner reports and Forrester reports? So for example, Gartner and Forrester were huge several 10, 20, 15 years ago, and they have these, estimates of profusion of technology or things. And one of the most fun things that you could do on a Sunday night over a cup of coffee is to go pull out an old Gartner report. And I'm not trying to make fun of Gartner, all these think tank consultancies, and pull out a report from 2005 or 2015 even. And whatever they were talking about, their estimates and how they thought the world was going to be, and compare it to what you see now and see how off they were. And that's not to make fun of them, but so I think we're all looking through a keyhole thinking the whole world is going to look that way. And it's really just not, doesn't make sense. And so
it's like putting a magazine from the 60s where you see flying cars and
I'm still waiting for my flying car.
Well, if you go to Back to the Future, which should be having the hoverboards, I mean,
Yeah.
that's not here yet, so.
Yeah, I mean, I just have more ways to take pictures. That's about it.
Yeah.
And more ways to take selfies, but I have no flying cars yet.
Yeah, before you carry a phone, now you carry a camera that is a phone.
As a matter of fact, one of the interesting things that I see, and this is related to the conversation of insurance, is many people are going the other way with technology profusion, which is very indicative of the zeitgeist that could be emerging. So if you think about the number of people buying flip phones rather than buying smartphones, so there is a substantial material uptick in consumers going back in time, if you will, saying, hey, I just want a flip phone. I don't need the smartphone. I don't need all these things. And so I look that way and saying, okay, well, we're always thinking that technology is going to advance, adoption is going to increase. But what if there's a recession, a rescission of technology adoption to go backward? So backward compatibility, if you will, of lifestyle and ethnographic use cases. And so I think that's something we have to be very mindful of when we think about AI. As Sphere Consulting Group, works on implementing software and innovation, that's great. But maybe the innovation is also rearward looking and rearward adaptable as well. What I mean by that is most consumers don't really care whether Geico uses an AI chatbot or not. As a Geico customer, you just want to know, can someone just please take care of my broken bumper here in the middle of Manhattan? And who do I call? Can someone solve this for me?
Yeah.
And frankly, it's going to be human or human-like.
I think that's so important observation. As you said earlier, Chirag, as much as we need a kill switch, we also need processes that can gracefully fall back on manual mode. And we are becoming a society where technology is everywhere. I don't know if I can read a map anymore. I mean, I'm so dumb. I use a GPS to go from A to B, even if it's like 200 yards. And it's especially important in this context of tense geopolitical fighting with countries like Russia or China. I think those countries they are as advanced as we are, probably technology-wise, but they may have, especially in the countryside, a more sturdy way of living. They know how to live in a forest or how to light a fire if they need to. I'm not sure in our Western societies if we have this capability anymore to that extent. I studied cybersecurity at NYU, and we always link cybersecurity to physical security. What if a bad guy, comes into a server room and disconnect everything? I think without being catastrophic, we need in insurance to always keep an eye on how do we gracefully fall back on some form of process. if AI fails us or if for any reason we have a problem.
Yeah. No, this
Well,
is
that's great. We've got a number of questions from the audience, but before we get to that, just with the panelists, I just wanted to maybe go around for any final comments the panelists may have around the state of AI in insurance before we go to the questions.
okay. Let me start just to change the voice here because we have very particular voices here, which is great. And actually, the beauty is, that we are really providing information from all over the world, guys. Because Alexander is in Europe. So and Chirac does business globally. And so is Fear. So
Actually, US based, but I spend a fair amount of time in Europe. Yeah.
yes. So we just want to make sure that we're bringing a global perspective to the conversation. In that, and what I would say is the challenges the insurance companies at the end when we're talking about really focusing on value, focusing on things that we can do for them, are really driven by similar processes here and there and everywhere, which is good. I think going back to what Chirag was saying is, should we be looking at trying to find a problem that we're defining with new technologies, or should we be looking at what's the day-to-day that we can help with, the new technology? And that's just, food for thought that I would throw there. And then I'll be able to answer, um, some of the questions that are coming up there. So, final thoughts, Alexander Chirac?
I'll just go real quick here. I'm really excited about what Sphere is doing here, what our collective industry is doing in the insurance space. There's definitely a use case, a very valid set of use cases all across the functional areas within the insurance stack. I would just say we have to be mindful about what is it we need to do, why, how do we do it, and then where's the kill switch. And that's it. And I think there's tremendous positivity for innovation, but we also need to be very mindful of it because we're all racing because we see the other guy racing. And it's like, where are we racing to? And that's all. So this is a great conversation. I hope it's very helpful for our audience and of course ourselves.
Yeah,
So
sorry.
Oh, go ahead, Alex. Yeah, let's hear your comment.
Just wanted to say that if you start from scratch, I like the idea of experimenting the sandbox approach on a limited scale, trying to solicit from the employees themselves areas where they think AI could potentially help. Of course, you need to vet the project, but that could be a good starting point to send a signal to your staff that you're making them part of the story. If you're looking for more bigger project, I would look at underwriting. Yes, what I described earlier, the quote processing. This can be, and on the claim side as well. Anything that can make the client experience, the insured experience, smoother in terms of interaction, speed, accuracy.
That's great. Well, thank you, panelists. Appreciate your insight thus far in the webinar. We'll now jump to some questions from the audience. So our first audience question here is, AI models have been targeted for misuse by cyber criminals. They've even developed their own malicious large language models. So how can insurance companies fight against AI attacks, AI-driven attacks from the outside?
I can take this one. So yeah, as we said earlier, bad actors are looking at AI as a way to improve their own productivity when it comes to attack targets, whether for ransomware or with a nation state's objective to debilitate critical infrastructure at the enemy. And the problem we have is that our digital life is so scattered. We live crumbs of our lives everywhere, on social media. We see AI an opportunity for bad actors to use this and with AI to figure out who you are as a CFO, as a CEO, as a CTO, and trying to harness more efficient cyber attack against you by way of social engineering. They want to know more details about you and be able to craft communication, whether it's an email or now with deepfake, they can also fake voice over the phone and make you trigger the payment to some account in a third party, third country. And this is a problem. So I think we can use AI to counter that, trying to, as I said earlier, to use AI to detect phishing attempts. We also need to work on behaviors, make sure that people are more cautious when they are on social media, for example, help them better manage their their attack surface, what we call the attack surface, which is all the possibilities for hackers to attack them and get inside.
Thank you, Alex. Great response. Our next question reads, thanks for the great insights. This is a great learning experience. But in your experience panel, can you share a use case where AI has demonstrably benefited the insurance industry positively?
I'll take that one. So I'll lower my hand. In practicality, I mean, I have 3 different areas where, AI has, benefited insurance company. And I'm not talking about just GenAI. I'm talking, remember, AI is many different ways of doing it, right? So do you have prescriptive analytics, which is understanding why things are happening? Do you have predictive analytics, which is talking about the future, the what if questions, right? That all those 2 previous help you do machine learning models. And then now we evolve to, GenAI. So it's one more tool on your tool belt that you have for doing that. In the case of practical cases of AI for insurance, we have created cases where helped the risk department be able to understand if the risk, different rules that they're putting to on the underwriting conditions to accept policies are being followed or not followed by agents, right? Because as you know, you call an agent and you say, hey, I have 2 teenage kids, I have a wife, but hey, I have a house, I have a boat. So they want to grab you a package. So they keep on moving and doing things until the underwriting system tells them, yeah, I can insure this person, right? So that is basically putting at risk the company. So they want to know if the rules that they put in there, they can see it right away. AI helps them see things instead of weeks in one day. So that's a practical case where basically understanding the prescriptive first, doing predictive modeling on who's doing what and what the effect is going to have on the rules instead of waiting 3 weeks or 4 weeks to see what that behavior is going to be. By reading the behavior of one day, you're able to predict what's happening. Also, with using the GenAI power, you can enhance the abilities of the underwriting to do the mundane tasks, like Alex was mentioning earlier on. Is those tasks that are repetitive, that they go review these documents, those rules, as long as they're very honest, and I go back to governance, because if you're honest, your governance is telling you that you're doing things the right way, who owns the data, who has the data, they give you the ability to get productivity, which we have seen up to 30% productivity on the underwriting analyst, just because we give them the ability to do all those tasks based on a few agents that validate all that a lot volume of underwriting. And now the next step that we're doing is we're going to help them even do direct emails back based on the rules, because they just have to validate and make sure that the AI, once again, go back to Shrek. Let's be the co-pilot of AI, right? So let's do that co-pilot and be sure that we don't have to pull the kill switch and be able to get them back to the client and say, hey, you didn't give me all this information. So now you're taking the time away from people to be writing that, but you have the agent being more productive, which means you have the human part interested on doing their interesting job instead of the mundane job.
So our next question is very related to that, Mario, and kind of is the overarching question I think a lot of people have. And that question reads like this. Some businesses are clearly looking at AI to reduce personnel. Does our panel think that the primary use of AI is replacing people or making people more efficient and effective?
I mean, I will open it up to the rest of the panelists, but like I said, it's all about how you approach the, I would say, the experiment. Like Alex was saying, that's the good about experimenting, is that you show that the potential of what you can do doesn't put that at risk. I just talked about making your analyst more efficient. So we're not replacing, but this gives the ROI to the company because it's saying, hey, if you wanted to increase your productivity by this much percent, you were thinking of hiring 4 more analysts. Guess what? If I increase your productivity of the existing team, you don't have to do that. So now you're saving, money, and you'll be more productive. Now, when you are increasing your staff, you are really reaching for a higher goal. So that to me is the vision that I see on successful AI projects. Those projects that have been driven by AI trying to substitute a human, I would go quoting Chirag again. Those needed a kill switch, but I will pass it along and see what they say about that.
I think what we're going to see, and it's not specific to insurance, but it's very true for insurance. Insurance is about saving people security at the time they are most distressed. Their house has been on fire, they lost their car, they lost a loved one. And AI is going to create the opportunity for humans to spend more time with humans on human things. So, of course, AI is going to mean that you can replace the work done currently by human, but it doesn't mean that the human are taken out of the picture. I think successful insurance operations are going to find out that there is a way to redeploy human capacity to interface with clients, who remain other humans. So I think there's going to be an adjustment, and the jobs of insurance tomorrow are not going to be the one we see today, but there will be a place for humans tomorrow.
Thanks. Okay. Great answers. Our next question, very interesting question. We all know about the speed at which government operates, not always very fast. And in a highly regulated industry like insurance, should we all wait for regulatory clarity before using AI in a big way?
I wouldn't wait. I'm not sure where regulators will land with AI, but as far as insurance, I mean, using AI is like a piece of software on a computer. There is no restriction to do that as long as you protect your clients' confidential information and you live by the terms of your insurance policy. So I would certainly not wait for regulators to take a stance on AI before experimenting and engaging into projects.
So I would recommend Chirag to, we got to make you public, we got to make you viral so we can get that point of view. So those regulations, and people are thinking about regulations, at least, look at both sides of the coin, because I think that's really where, using the lessons learned, right? And going back to your analogy of looking back at those old Gartner reports, right? It's going to be, to me, the key of how long AI, especially, GenAI, this part of AI is going to be that revolution or not. Like I said at the beginning, AI has been here for many, many, many years. It's just a question that now we have the power to do things a lot faster, so just parting thoughts. So, Joe?
Yeah, another question we have is, as we, come to rely on whatever answer AI is giving us more and more, how do we make sure that AI is providing an accurate or correct answer? And then how do we maintain sort of traceability or attribution in terms of how AI arrived at that answer?
Well, it's a problem right now. I mean, it's AI is used through APIs. It's not always clear which version of the product you're using. There is a question here about versioning and keeping track of AI produced results, try to make sure that the context travels with the AI interactions. That we remember, if we have any legal questions, for example, you have to expect, by the way, disputes in the future about AI-based decisions. And it will be critical to go back in time and find out which version of the AI was used to generate X or Y answer. And I'm not sure all the systems right now enable that. It's kind of forensic capabilities as they should.
Great. Okay. Well, I think we're almost at time. We've gotten some great questions from the participants, some great insight, I think, from our panelists. In the last maybe minute or two, is there any final thoughts that the panelists have before we conclude the webinar?
I'm going to pass the baton to Chirag. I always find him with very interesting thoughts. So, Chirag, any final thoughts? Just this 1 minute, and let us keep on thinking.
All I could say is I think that we should not be scared of the future. We just need to read our history, and that's how we'll feel more comfortable collectively endeavoring into the future. You know, there was a popular song that says nothing new, there's nothing new under the sun. And I kind of start seeing that. It's like, you know, like there's all these hype cycles every 10, 15 years, but we shouldn't fear it. We should understand it and then use it to our best advantage as possible for all of humanity and all of us. And I think that it's not displacing humans, it's enhancing human endeavors. And so if we look at it with positive lenses, then we'll hopefully make the right decisions together.
Thank you. Perfect
Okay.
thought.
Well,
That's great.
I'm not paid for saying that, but if and when you go and select a vendor to do your AI project, you have to find somebody who is going to take into account the various elements that Chirag and I talked about today. Primarily the human element. It's so important. I was attending another webinar as a participant earlier this week, and there is a concept of AI vendor management at this point. The offering is so deep and so broad that as a buyer of AI services, you may be confused. I think what should guide your decision in the end is the quality of the human interaction with the vendor and the ability of the vendor to understand the key challenges, the key human challenges in your own organization, beyond technical capabilities, of course, but this human factor is really so important.
I totally agree. I think going back to the AI readiness that we started this, you know, so full circle here. Part of the AI readiness is being able to understand that AI is just one more tool. You know, all that, you know, GenAI, all these LMs, all this power that we're getting right now is just a way to do things that we could have done years ago, but we just didn't have the compute power to do it. So we gotta make the people understand. Go back to Chirag and you, Alex, and it's not the human element, is the history behind it and understanding the cycle. So my final thoughts for those leaders in business is focus about what your business is trying to achieve and use the technology to help you achieve that. Not use the technology as your driver, but use your goals and your mission as your driver. That would be my parting thoughts.
Well, panel, we certainly appreciate all of your insight today. Participants, thank you for joining and listening today. Thank you for your thoughtful questions. Certainly would encourage our participants to visit the Sphere website, www.sphereinc.com. And if you've got any additional questions that maybe you think of later, feel free to put those through on the website, and we will make sure we run them past our panelists and get answers for you. But again, thanks everyone. I thought it was a great webinar today. I certainly learned a lot, and I hope all of you did as well. So have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.